It matters a lot where you put the advertisement. It matters a lot if you put the advertisement on different channels with the same person, different channels, different shows, different time within the show will give us completely different, like 300 times, 300%, not 300 times, 300% better results difference between when we where we put the ad for the same person. How is that even possible? So the only explanation is context. It's the same. So I take myself as an example. If I see an advertisement, happy advertisement, if I see a sad movie, completely disconnect. If I'm on a different mood, if I see a sad advertisement after a sad movie, it was something, after research, we found that emotional resonance is probably the best answer. If you are on the same kind of an emotional level, the likelihood that you understand the message behind the advertisement is much higher. So we started with seeing it in results, and then we looked at with AI and many different features. Eventually, we ended up with a model that is based on emotions. We measure the emotions. That's something that you can do only on CTV.
Yeah.
So we with AI we can understand. We know what you watch. We can analyze it and know what you feel. And then if we put an advertisement that is at about the same emotional frequency, the chances that you'll notice it and have a positive attention to it is by far better.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
Super excited to have Ron Gutman on with me. He's the CEO of Wurl, which is now an app-loving company. And we'll start off with, like, a bunch of folks probably don't know who you guys are and what you do, so as a platform. So why don't we start with, like, the elevator pitch of what you guys do?
Absolutely. So Wurl is a technology company in the CTV streaming space. And we realized later on, at the beginning, we started in 2017, actually. And we realized that the transition to streaming will happen not just in Netflix, as about subscription-based, the advertisement, as viewership is moving to streaming, advertisers and ad-supported content will move also to streaming. So we developed technologies first to enable distribution. We did the first fast channel with on Samsung 5 years ago exactly, and ever since we created a lot of technology that allows distribution and monetization of content, of streaming content that is ad supported on connected television. We have over 4,000. It's called fast channels, free ad supported television channels. With all the platforms, from Pluto to Samsung to Roku, wherever you can find content, very likely most of the content that you watch is somehow been processed, scheduled, streamed, monetized by us. Over time, we solved more and more problems in this market because you don't just need to transition content. Content is just the first step. Then you need to find people to watch it. And most people don't know how much content they have for free on their TV set. And next, you need to, as viewership moves, you need to make advertisers comfortable in buying CTV. CTV inventory is phenomenal. So we, over time, built more and more technologies that are relevant for that market, and this market has been growing very fast, no pun intended, in the last few years. And I think, so I always tell, Apple haven't acquired us 2 years ago. We are their CTV arm. We grew very quickly. In the podcast, you can see the hand gesture very quickly before the acquisition and much more after the acquisition. And this entire market is growing in terms of every aspect, viewership and content and how you interact with content. That's all. It's just a very interesting market to be in at this time.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, when I'm wearing my agency hat and helping steward ad budgets, one of the things that I really like about CTV is it's preserved as a result of shrink wrap agreements or whatever, click wrap agreements or whatever you want to call it when you use your cable box, that, these things are still much more addressable in that market in comparison to sort of the RTB market where the third-party cookies are disappearing and identity graphs are becoming a lot more muddied. And so I'm wondering if you guys are getting a tailwind as a result of the fact that the household is still targetable, right? In a way that you're losing some targeting in the broader ecosystem.
Well, it's I think the house is a bit TVs are a bit behind for positive or negative. I mean, there are positives aspects of it and negative compared to web and mobile.
Yeah.
Obviously, performance marketing changed our lives completely. And you get things that are way more suitable to you because of that, because the chances if once things are measured, that changes everything from training AI to your likelihood of changing channels. The advertisements are way more suitable to you in digital. In old TV, you would get, a very low portion. I've been in advertisement and TV tech for 25 years, so we actually built software system for spots in television, my previous company as well. So it's so inefficient then that. But on the other hand, TV is the best medium because you get 30 seconds of attention. You can't skip. You can't. You wait for the next content. So it's a big screen. We see from measurement that the attention on the TV is by far higher, even than video, social video. Get like 15 seconds of attentions compared to 3 seconds of attention or less than a second attentions in social. So it's a big screen. It's not skippable. You get the attention. And now what's happening is that you are starting to get all the digital technologies first, before the limitations. First, you get the technologies. The limitations will come as it goes. So you get the option, you get a TV, which is the best advertisement medium in terms of attention, and then you can target and measure. That's the new things that are happening. You can target and measure people, which makes it significantly more effective than TV on one side and other digital formats on the other side. So CTV is very exciting. In terms of cookies, there are no cookies really in CTV, but you can measure device IDs, you can measure IP addresses. It's you can comply with all the privacy aspects way better than TV, and still provide personalized experience in terms of advertisements and pretty soon also in terms of content.
Yeah, that's absolutely key. One of the things I'd love to get your perspective on, and it may be somewhat tangential to what you're doing, but we changed the way we produced video ads for clients when we were in a skippable environment versus a 15 or 30, where you can do more storytelling style, right?
That's right.
Because if you only really have 3 or 4 seconds to grab their attention with a hook in a YouTube style video spot, that's very different than what you're going to do if you have an opportunity to tell a story in a 15 or a 30 or maybe even a 60, right, in CTV. So I feel like there's a simultaneous creative renaissance that is going on, driven by the technology. Do you see that as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's we announced yesterday a new product that came from exactly this notion. Sometimes products are based on some kind of a vision. You think about a really good idea, then you build it and it happens. And sometimes it's completely empirical. You measure stuff that you have, and you find out completely new truth that you didn't realize before. So we try different creatives. We have because of AppLovin, we have it's performance marketing.
Yeah.
So we don't get paid unless it's successful. So you try different advertisements and you see what's working immediately. Like you measure the results. The person watched an advertisement on the TV, and as a result, within 20 minutes, did they download the app or not? So it's measured based on correlation on the IP. And so we tried at the beginning, about a year ago, many different advertisements. And those that worked best were those that were not jumping with the product in the first 13 seconds. Actually build up some kind of a story. You have time. You can build even an emotional narrative that will lead to a conclusion. So that was the first kind of realization that is very different than digital in television, that we could empirically see with the results. The second thing that we realized, it was a completely shock to me. Later on, I realized that other people already knew about it. was very interesting. So let me tell you the story. We were measuring results on our campaign, and we see that and we target people based on past experience. So we have data. We will have an AI score on people that are likely to interact with an advertisement, and it changes. It matters a lot where you put the advertisement. It matters a lot if you put the advertisement on different channels with the same person, different channels, different shows, different time within the show will give us completely different, like 300%, not 300 times, 300% better results difference between when we where we put the ad for the same person. How is that even possible? So the only explanation is context. It's the same. So I take myself as an example. If I see an advertisement, happy advertisement, if I see a sad movie, completely disconnect. If I'm on a different mood, if I see a sad advertisement after a sad movie, it was something, after research, we found that emotional resonance is probably the best answer. If you are on the same kind of an emotional level, the likelihood that you understand the message behind the advertisement is much higher. So we started with seeing it in results, and then we looked at with AI many different features. Eventually, we ended up with a model that is based on emotions. We measure the emotions. That's something that you can do only on CTV.
Yeah.
So we with AI we can understand. We know what you watch. We can analyze it and know what you feel. And then if we put an advertisement that is at about the same emotional frequency, the chances that you'll notice it and have a positive attention to it is by far better. And then we started to run campaigns like this in the last 6 months. We actually released it internally with select customers 6 months ago. We ran it on many different measurements, and it's shown that it's working. Yesterday, we publicly announced it. We call it BrandDiscovery, like app discovery from AppLovin. BrandDiscovery is for brands. It's actually for people to find the brands, to realize that the brands that they see, to be open to the advertisement. It's much better if you have a contextual some kind of contextual resonance, and the emotions are a really good first step.
Yeah, the thing that strikes me most about that I really like is that, the person's reaction to any kind of a sponsorship or advertisement, right? It could range from extremely positive to neutral to negative. And you certainly don't want negative, because now you've actually annoyed them, right?
That's right.
And so it's what you're describing increases the odds that the person will actually be delighted by the ad as opposed to negatively impacted by the ad. Now, obviously, you'll take neutral in some cases. People would prefer to see it without any ad, but it's a quid pro quo. They know if I'm going to watch ad-supported TV, I'm going to get ads, but they would prefer to not see a diaper ad if they haven't had a kid in 20 years, and they prefer not to see denture ads if they're 22 years old and they just got their molars in, right? And so the ability for the intelligence and the algorithm to more likely delight the consumer, it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, it's also a win for the publisher. We have a statistic that we'll release soon that people, if you have a emotional dissonance, it's more likely we just see more people tune off of the channel. So you just change channel. If they are annoyed, they'll change channel. I think it's also better for the brand because if you remember, emotions are stored in our brain together as a signal. So you get the visual, the audio signals, you'll get the language from the Broca area. It's broken down to neural activity, and at the same time, the amygdala is regulating the hormones eventually. So if you are sad, the serotonin levels will be very low. And if that's what you feel right now, you're sad, you can't help it. It's a signal. If you are sad when you're storing a memory, when you retrieve this memory, that's the feeling that comes with it. So if you are now watching a sad movie and now you see an advertisement, that's the emotion that you stayed with. Sadness is the longest emotion in terms of how long it prevails in your brain. This is how you store. That's what a brand will be forever or until updated, stored in your memory, associated with in your memory. So for brands, if you have, if you want, you need to. It's also almost a brand safety issue. Do you want your brand to be associated with the feelings that happened before the advertisement was even shown? And then when you get emotional dissonance, that's just angry. That increasing the cortisol levels, you're becoming angry. If you're angry, it's good for some brands, but it's not good for others. You just want to avoid emotional dissonance. So it really something that now can measure it with AI. It's enabled programmatically. You just need to take it into account. It's not hard at all. With CTV, the content is well mapped to emotions. Machines understand emotions way better than humans. We realized that long time ago. So that's something that is very doable.
So obviously AI is the buzzword of the year, and so you can apply AI to the context and understanding the emotional context and or topical context of shows and tune the ads to that. But also there's sort of the opportunity to hyper-personalize or customize ads or create much more variations of ads as a result of Gen AI. So what areas do you think, or do they all show the same promise, right? Because I'm not worth creating a custom ad just for me, but I may be in a kind of a persona or a segment where within that same happy movie, comedy movie, I would respond to a particular ad differently. And there are, a million other people like me, right? And that an AI can sort of understand that people in our cohort, people in that segment, they will respond to that ad. And so, that's a combination of targeting, context, the emotional resonance of the message to the person, but then the creative itself.
That's right. So the first, that's completely right. The first step that you can do as a marketer is if you created a really good creative, if you want it or not, you already decided on the emotions for the creative. It was done either consciously or subconsciously by the creative team. And so the first thing that you can do is whenever you run this creative, make sure it's running on the same emotion. Mm-hmm. There are only 4 emotion pairs, right? You have fear versus anger, joy versus sadness, anticipation versus surprise, and trust versus disgust. So if you want, and the combinations are like love is trust and joy at the same time. That's love. It's high serotonin, high oxytocin. That means that that if you have a creative that is kind of family, it could be a financial advertisement related, you want to create a trust. So if people feel like that as they go and start watching the advertisement, that gives you much better brand awareness. They can walk with the message, they can walk with the creative, and eventually they pay attention to the brand and will memorize the brand. Will memorize the brand with these emotions as well. Also important. The next step is, okay, what if I'm I don't know, a food product. Well, food product in general, it's just better if you have a high anticipation. That's why they like sports, because that's usually the emotion that comes with it. But maybe you want to do audience extension and reach more audiences, then you can create multiple creatives, and it's easy to target different combinations. If you can measure the results, then you can see it yourself. Sam Altman, I've seen you saying like a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, that 95% of what marketers and agencies are doing will be replaced. Tasks that are doing will be replaced by AI. If that happens, then part of it is the create. Well, you saw it Sora as well. Creating more creatives is relative. It will be easier. Creatives in general that are only 30 seconds. You have technologies that can do it now. A big part of the emotion analysis that we're doing with generative AI is the audio. Especially on advertisement, the audio playback has a significant influence on how people feel at the same time. Don't ask me why. That's empirical. No, but creative people know it. They know absolutely. They know, they do it without the analysis. They know that if it's sad, they'll put a sad music in the background, and that's what people feel automatically. So you can more easily create 4 different or 8 different emotions, and just find more content and get better, prices, and then compare all of them and see what's working best for you. That's not that hard.
I love the point you just made there with by having the different creative variants, you may be able to find white space in the ecosystem where people aren't running the ads, right? And so your CPM may be lower. And even if your CPM is 30% lower, and the responsiveness of the ad is only 10% lower because it's in a sad context or whatever, right? It's still worth doing, right? Because you're now going in there and taking advantage of the unsold or undersold inventory.
That's right. So that's we realized that, and we created we published it yesterday, created it a few months ago, a PMP for every emotion at every level. So we do low, high, and medium, and you can target any combination and or with PMPs. So you can target specific combinations or multiple, and then if you can measure properly, you'll see the results for every emotion. If not, you'll see it by sample, by results, and the high emotions are working best, and we have more demand, and therefore the price is like 20-30% higher. We don't charge separately for the data, but because there is more demand, it's just harder to win the auction. So that happens automatically in the programmatic world. If we get a direct deal, then we find exactly the fulfillment. We have it on a lot of inventory, so now it's actually a good time to try different things. Towards the end of the year, it's better if you know exactly, because then you can optimize your campaigns much better when it's more expensive.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because you have essentially either an IP or other ability to understand identity over time, are there any findings yet, or do you anticipate there being findings that when you start to reach an impression cap on creative A, or you're starting to mix creatives A and C, or A and D, or D and B, that you can sort of reinforce the earlier creative, or somehow get like a 1 + 1 = 3 scenario, where when people see that third impression, even if it's a variant of that same message delivered in a different emotional style, that like you get these weird dynamics?
That's a good idea. Let me look into it. Yeah, no, sequencing, we looked at sequencing in the past. It's obviously every dimension that you add, it's a lot more compute,
Yeah, for
you
sure.
need a lot more data. So to be honest, we didn't get to sequencing at all. Definitely not with emotions. We are just on the first one.
Sure. Yeah. No, just obviously it planted the seed in my mind that would be really fun to look at, because against certain audiences, what you find is like the heavy watcher of some device, whether it's, on Meta or TV, right, is they start to hit the impression caps earlier, right, because they're a heavy consumer. And so it becomes actually more challenging to decide, well, do I just want to shut down after a certain number of impressions? And we can algorithmically sort of make that decision cut off, as opposed to an arbitrary number. But, the idea that you could potentially refresh or regenerate new interest just because now it's a completely different creative and a different resonance, right, is sort of really fascinating.
Yeah, so we did a version of it. Now this is to support it completely with sequencing is just need a lot of data and a lot of campaigns. Maybe eventually we will be able to do it. But we are seeing two things that you mentioned, and we are using two things of what you just said. One is we found that with emotional resonance, that the time to reaction is lower, and we definitely reduce the frequency cap. You don't need more than 2 or 3. If you get an exact emotional correlation, people are going to have more attention, more positive attention to the creative. You need less. So usually people like to do 5 on CTV. In mobile banners, it's like 20, but 5 in CTV. If you are choosing the emotional resonance, high emotions, typically on the content that match your creative, you'll find with 2 to 3. So maybe they are more expensive because they have more demand, but actually you need the lower frequency cap. So you can address more people. You can find more people this way, and have a better return on ad spend actually. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is that, and we did it more on with content discovery, where we are converting people to watch a channel or download a SVOD or AVOD app that they haven't before. Once they are showing an intent, sometimes there is a journey. For example, in SVOD, you download the app first on CTV, then you register. That's the biggest drop, by the way, in people, because you need to enter your information, and that's just hard. People, I'll do it later, and they forget about it. And then you get to a trial. You put your credit card in the registration, and then you get to a trial after 7 days. So that's a journey, and you can measure steps in the journey. So people that converted, at least for the first step, they installed the app on the TV, and now 70%, 30% of them registered, or 20% registered. Everybody else showed intent. That's actually the least expensive conversion. So you know they already are interested in the content, but you just need to convince them. So that's the time where you just show them as much content that is available on the platform, and this is how you get a lot of conversions. That by itself is something. And by the way, you hit them everywhere. Hit them on the mobile. They already showed intent.
Yeah.
So we are not the only one who did that. But once you show intent, that's the best way to, without accuracy of sequencing even. Just show different kind of ads, and then they register, and about half will cancel, but it's not as bad. As the hard step is, for some reason, is entering the credit card.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. And ironically, it resonates with something I invented in the direct mail business, which is we put custom QR codes on every piece of mail for every recipient. And so that when they scan the QR code to get their personalized offer just for Ron Gutman, we know that you scanned it, right? So we know you took that first step, even if you abandon the landing page. And so you've already raised your hand, expressed intent. And so now that the subsequent messaging can really be about just getting you to consummate that, right? Or in the case of B2B, having a salesperson call, right?
Right.
And so it's interesting that, the lowest friction conversion, right, is the cheapest, and the highest friction conversion, which in your case is credit card entry, is hardest to get the people over that hump. But at least if you know that they raised their hand, you can then segment them differently with creative messaging or frequency down the road.
That's right. The conversion is very low to install.
Yeah.
But the conversion from install to registration is not low, and that's the best people in terms of return on ad spend that you can target.
Yeah.
So however, anyone who is listening who has any kind of a multi-stage journey, the people lower at the funnel are easier to convert.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So the future is going to be super exciting. Oh, you have something else?
Not exactly true. There is one exception. There is the long-term brand recognition. So if you're a big brand, the long-term brand recognition is even more important, because this is good for conversions on SVOD applications, for example, that we have a lot of experience with. But if for brands, the actual it's not about buying once a McDonald's. It's forever associate McDonald's with something that you like to do. So for many brands, it's not at all about conversion. It's about brand lift.
Yeah.
And the good news is it doesn't matter in terms of decide your emotions, make sure you have emotional resonance that will have the best brand lift, the best long-term brand recall, and the best brand association with the emotions that you want. Because if you can't be sad and happy at the same time, but because of the serotonin levels, you can have spike of high serotonin that will go down if you're really sad. So people that are very sad for some reason can laugh and be happy for a second, and then they come back to sadness. So you can't be both of them at the same time. But you really want, if you want your brand to be associated with joy, it's best if you find 1 million people that are happy, and not you don't know what you're buying.
Right. Yeah.
I just wanted to say about the brand.
That's interesting. It comes back to brand safety, but it also reinforces the fact that a certain level of sustained awareness, in addition to brand building, is also a bit of a trust builder, right? Because this person wouldn't be spending this amount of advertising if they weren't legit. So, it reinforces that decision that people are making, whether they're walking down the supermarket aisle and deciding between brand A or brand B. Right, they're like, oh yeah, they have an emotional resonance with that brand because of a recent advertising. Breaking that tie for the people who are switchers, I mean, that's what the cola wars are all about, right? Some people don't care about Coke or Pepsi. They're like, whatever's on sale, I'll buy. I don't really care. But if you can just break that tie a little bit into your direction, that makes a huge difference.
That's right.
Let's look towards the future. It's going to be an exciting year for sure. It seems like you guys just had some announcements. What has you most excited about CTV for the remainder of this year and beyond?
So what we are working with a lot of publishers right now is the next step in the evolution. So the first 5 years, let's put it in perspective of a decade. So the first 5 years in CTV was about to enable content and copy more or less the cable experience in terms of how you find content and how many channels you have and how many. We are now at a point that you have way more content in streaming than any cable, any satellite, and you see it with viewership, but it's still, even ad-supported content is expected to grow 25% this year. In terms of viewership, it's getting to half of the viewership is done on streaming and half the viewership is done on cable and satellite. And it's not because the content is not available. You have more content. Now it's about educating people about all the content that they have. And the biggest problem doing that is discoverability. They don't know about the content that they have. And so the next 5 years, what we're seeing is that more and more digital technologies from mobile and web, digital technologies related to personalization and recommendation will go into CTV that will solve exactly this problem. If you can, Netflix has put a lot of effort in this. We have a recommendation AI that is working very well with content discovery. So we know what the likelihood of a person to interact, because we see that they change a lot of channels, and also going to like the content. So we are showing them an advertisement at the right time, and the conversion is very high. So we'll have more and more digital technologies, including clicks with your remote, that will connect people to content. And that will, in the next 5 years, will complete the transition. I think you won't have in 5 years a lot of cable satellite, because it just doesn't make sense. The experience will be better. Finding content will be much easier. You have a lot more content. It's more fun. That will complete the transition. The second thing is improving and both of them is done with AI. Every new technology that is out there right now. If you look at what the building or what enabled it, eventually it's AI. So the second thing that will happen is a lot content. We will have even more content because the content production will become less expensive. And the third is efficiency in advertisement will get into CTV. So you will be able to click product to add it to your cart somewhere on Amazon or somewhere, depending on wherever you do your shopping, and the measurement and targeting, all the digital technologies that work very well on web will one by one will be introduced, and that will be great for advertisers, because eventually CTV is the best medium. You get the attention, you get the big screen, you get that skippable effect, and you have all the digital technologies that allow you to target and measure.
Great. I'll look forward to continuing to follow your progress and the industry progress overall. I appreciate having you on.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you for the discussion.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.